There's something wrong with the soft play center PT. 1. When my manager offered me extra shifts last week, I said yes without hesitation. I don't do much in the evenings, and I could use the extra cash. Get Nadia to show you round the play center before you leave today, said Craig. Nadia's my coworker. The soft play center is her patch. Most jobs at the leisure center take 2, maybe 3 hours at most, but Nadia rarely got away before 10 each night. My tongue was already in knots. Sorry, would it be okay if I got here for like 5 p.m.? He gave a smiling nod. Nadia doesn't usually start the clean till 6. I thanked him again. Good manners make up for all the times I'd taken his instructions way too literally. Craig's been much more tolerant with me than other bosses. His slow, plodding steps and thick Blackpool accent made it hard to feel afraid of him. See how you like it. He fell in step beside me as I continued down the corridor to find my colleague. I thought he was making a joke and tried a laugh. I'm probably a bit old for soft play, he laughed. No, I meant the cleaning shift. Oh, of course. It's a very different job from cleaning the gym. But if you like it, you could maybe take these hours on for good. Is Nadia leaving? Craig gave a slow shrug. She's off on holiday this week. We'll see what happens after that. Thanks, sweetheart. I liked Nadia. We didn't know each other that well, but I'd only ever had kindly smiles from her, and she never seemed annoyed when I asked for help. What's more, I always thought that she kind of looked like Mary from Silent Hill. Eventually, I found her in the cleaning cupboard, twirling her earphones round her finger. Sorry. At the sound of my voice, she let out a stifled gasp. I smiled an apology. I should have knocked. She stared at me wide-eyed for a second or so, waiting for her brain to process whose face she was looking at. Oh, she laid her hand on my arm. Sorry, honey, sorry. And no worries. Craig says you're off tomorrow? She nodded. I'm covering your shifts this week, I continued. Just wondered if you had a second to show me how you clean the soft play sometime this morning. Nadia looked at me in silence for a minute. It made me feel a little awkward. Had I offended her? Craig asked you to cover me? Yeah, I smiled. Her eyes grew wider. I felt myself wilt. I guess she thought I wasn't competent, but was too nice to admit it. Aha! She shook her head and stuck her phone back in her pocket, leaving the earphones trailing. Ushering me out, she smiled hard. I start upstairs. The experience of that first walk around was one of nostalgia. The faded walls, the gaudy illustrations of cartoon animals, and the playful shadows cast by snaking slides and sprawling ball pits were precisely as I remembered them. The sickly smell of birthday cake and vomit inspired in me a wave of memories. As we plodded round the parents' cafe, I could almost see Mum sipping tea at the corner table, like some disconsolate prisoner. I felt my brother's spirit running to the rope swing that dangled barely half a foot from the cushioned floor. Even the squeak of Nadia's trainers against the spongy green floor was tinged with childhood. I remembered every lonely moment, playing by myself at the back while the other kids giggled behind me. I don't mop every day, Nadia's voice brought me back from reverie. Oh, that's good. Only once or twice a week, or when someone spilled juice. I was glad to hear it. At the back of the soft play, the dimly lit corridors wound left and right without any discernible pattern. We passed a solitary waste bin. Shaped like an anthropomorphic beetle, its sordid smile betrayed 10 years' grind. We changed the bins too, right? I asked, when the silence had lasted a little too long between us. If you want, Nadia turned to me. We're not technically meant to start clean down until 6 p.m., but I try and sneak in here at 5. That way I'm not here after dark. I imagine it's a bit spooky after dark back here. I meant it as a joke, but Nadia took me seriously. You don't have to stay the whole 3 hours, you know? Her heavy tone caught me off guard. But as I studied her face, I saw her features bore a strange, almost protective quality. Just make sure you don't hang around if you don't need to. It doesn't take a whole 3 hours. And if you feel weird about being here alone, just lock up and get out. Okay, I was touched. Thanks. She held my gaze. It was as though she wanted me to say something more, but I couldn't think of anything to say that wouldn't sound contrived. Still, she added at last, don't put yourself at risk. It's not worth it. My first shift was that night. I got to the sports center just before 5 and got a Red Bull from the vending machine. Before I went any further, I pulled my earphones carefully over my head. The long, striplit corridor has that hard, vinyl flooring that makes footsteps offensively loud. I pattered past the disused lockers and the old squash courts until I reached the door emblazoned. Tunnelwig Play Center. I swiped my card and opened the door. As it was nearly closing, a handful of kids were visible through the rope mesh that separated the play center from the parents' cafe. A tired-looking young woman called her child from one of the tables as the supervisor appeared behind the counter. She was tall and blonde, maybe 28 or 29 years old, and very pretty. "Hey," she flashed me a sunny smile. "Hello," I mumbled. Am I too early to get started?" "Where, Nadia?" "She's on holiday." "Oh, you're covering?" "Aha," the sound of my voice was egregious to me. She nodded over to the cafe. "Would you mind getting started over there, please? Someone's just wee-weed on the floor." My attraction to her died that instant. I filled my bucket full of lemon soap and hot water before dragging it over to the pool of wee-wee. I finished up the floor and got started in the cafe, sweeping crumbs off tables, wiping down chairs, before running the shitty Henry Hoover over the sticky floor. It was nearly 8:30 when I got done, and all the play center staff had left. I sighed. I was so tired, and the constant smell of nappies grated on my senses. Waiting for me upstairs was the wreckage of a birthday party. Garish cellophane and disheveled party hats were strewn over the floor. I crouched down and crawled inside the jungle gym itself. Cake crumbs and sticky fingerprints were smeared across the interlocking foam, flooring, and walls. I cleared as much as I could before shuffling back out of the cramped tunnel to empty the pan. It takes a lot to gross me out these days. What I noticed in the pan didn't gross me out as such, but gave me pause. Amidst the party crumbs was a single strand of human hair. There's nothing abnormal in that. Kids pull each other's hair out all the time. The weird thing is that this hair was silver. Wrinkling my nose, I lowered the dustpan into the cafe bin. Someone's grandma must have followed their grandchild into the squishy tunnel and got stuck. Maybe they had smuggled in some red wine to pass the time, while their infant threw themselves at other kids and into ball pits for hours. It must have been a very small old lady who could fit in there. Once the crumbs were clear, I shuffled back out of the tunnel. It wasn't easy. Even at 5'5", I was too long for the environment and ended up back crawling out of the warren like a fat badger. The soft plays cushions were warm to the touch, but it was freezing in the cafe area. I pulled my jacket closer over my uniform. If the janitors had turned the central heating off, I was probably the only person left on site. I never thought I cared about working late, but the idea of the empty swimming pools and miles of deserted corridors gave me a creepy feeling. I'd never been at the leisure center this late before. Maybe that's why my soul left my body when I caught sight of a leering face out of the corner of my eyes. It was, of course, only the beetle bin, its plastic mouth incapable of anything more than a shit-eating grin. Laughing, I sauntered over to it and produced another cloth from my pocket. I sprayed the synthetic cheek with blue window cleaning fluid and scrubbed coffee spots off the white cast teeth. Why would they put this in a kid's play center? Don't get me wrong, the hideous, sordid creature was probably charming when it was new. In its present state, only Russ McCamey would choose it for furniture. The sleazy effect was not helped by the slogan slapped on the wall above in yellow bubble writing. "Can you find the tunnel wig?" I fucking hope not. I finished polishing the bin and reached to unscrew its gray head. I carefully held my breath as I ducked close to its mouth to prevent the damp, rotten smell of the rubbish from invading my senses. It did not. I jumped back from the beetle bin. Its many limbs were fixed in a perpetual shrug. You get used to freaky stenches when you clean for a living, but this smell was different. Think sickly sweet birthday cake frosting, mixed with banana peels and those button mushrooms that languish at the bottom of the vegetable drawer. Think mold furring on apples or a Halloween pumpkin left out in the rain until January. What the hell were they putting in there? I peered at the bin with renewed caution. It probably hadn't been changed in months. I double-gloved my hands and craned my neck back as I reached forward to carefully unscrew the beetle's head. Had someone brought their hamster in, only for it to escape and die at the bottom of the barrel? It smelled too sweet to be a carcass, but as I inched closer and closer to the beetle bin, I reconsidered. Sweaty hands closed round, suppurating peaches. A stomach distended from a manic binge. The devil's smooth. It actually made my head swim as I placed my hands on the beetle's smiling cheeks and slowly unscrewed the top. The black plastic rustled, and a waft of death assaulted my senses. I turned my nose away, pressed my lips together, and coiled the bin bag closed around my finger. Slowly, I lifted it, only to find that the liner was stuck to the bin's bottom. Whatever was making the unholy smell had leaked through the plastic and solidified. Oh God, I gingerly shook the bin to loosen it, to no avail. No wonder Nadia never changes it, I thought. They should just chuck this in a skip. It was too far behind the cafe area to get proper use anyway, yet I could not, in good conscience, neglect my duties by leaving the spoiled bag in situ. Kids use this space. Whatever was in the bag, it wasn't safe. Besides, I didn't want Nadia to think I had half-arsed it, or Craig for that matter. Come on, I whispered, half to the beetle and half to myself. That was when I felt it, a sharp, piercing stinging on the back of my clenched palm. It was acute, like a dog bite, but as I pulled my hand away with a cry, it oozed until my whole hand throbbed. What the fuck? I staggered back, pressing hard on my hand that shrieked in pain. I lifted my fingers for a second to see if my skin was broken. I turned my hand over, then back again, looking for a welt or a cut. Not only was there no blood, but there was no mark to be seen at all. Worse still was the feeling that succeeded. A cold, prickly realization, like sweat breaking on my brow, that I was not alone. My nerve broke like a twig beneath my feet. I kicked the Hoover back into the cleaning cupboard, grabbed my cleaning caddy and haired out of bed. I thundered down the stairs and back into the reception bay, before jamming the key code in and throwing back the door. I didn't stop running until I got to the cloakroom. Just as I pulled my bag over my shoulder, I realized how absurd the whole thing was. I stood there, panting and checking my hand over again. Nothing, I sighed and trudged back to reception to clock out. I scribbled something down in the incident book. If there was some kind of biting bug infestation in the beetle bin, there was no way the play center was fit for public use. Perhaps the closing mechanism on the lid was rusted and my hand had caught on the hinge. That explained it. The stench, well, that would be gone as soon as the janitor team saw my note in the maintenance book. They'd just cart the bin off and hurl it in the landfill, where it belonged. As for the creepy feeling, that was me, I thought, just being a scaredy little bit. These explanations are so rational that I can almost bring myself to believe them. Thing is, I'm on the bus to work now to start the next shift. Has anyone got any idea what might be in that beetle bin that stinks so horribly? Ideally, I don't want to hear suggestions about severed limbs or dead kids. I'd feel a lot better if I knew what to tell the janitors so they take it away ASAP. If anyone's come across anything like this before, please let me know if you can. There's something wrong with the Soft Play Center PT, too.